folks, and welcome to Mountain Talk here on WMMT. I'm Parker Hobson. So anybody hearing this right now probably needs no introduction to the notion of addiction and substance use disorder, and just the massive and overwhelming toll it's had on Appalachian people and communities. Here at WMMT, we've partnered with the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky to be a part of their statewide Free II project, which, among other goals, is trying to raise awareness and reduce the stigma around substance use disorder, treatment, and recovery. As part of this work, WMMT will be airing a brand new podcast series over the coming months, all about substance use disorder and recovery here in the mountains. And on Mountain Talk today, we have for you the very first episode in this new series, a roundtable discussion between several local people who are all in recovery. In this conversation, we'll hear their stories and about what led them to take that crucial step of getting into recovery. We'll also hear candid talk about how trauma can play a role in addiction. The voices you'll be hearing are that of local residents Samantha Colleen, Chris Campbell, Beckie Rose-Bowman, Iesha Elam, and Austin Callahan. Speaking of Austin Callahan, he's an intern with us here at WMMT as part of the Free II project, and he moderated this discussion and edited it for the radio. Here's Austin.
So guys, I guess tonight we're going to be talking about Ground Zero, which in all swing of things, I guess we're going to get down to who you are, just where you're from, how long you've been in recovery, and what inspired you to get into recovery.
Great question. Ladies first.
Look, I don't mind a bit. Beckie Rose-Bowman. I am restorative radio coordinator for Apple Shop. I've been in recovery for 6 going on 7 years. And I think the thing that inspired me the most to get into recovery was just desperation at the time. There are other things now that inspire me to stay in recovery. But at the time, like that immediate answer is I was desperate.
That was a good answer. My name's Samantha Coward, but I'm originally from Big Stone Gap, Virginia, and I moved to Kentucky, I would say about 10 years ago. And I'm currently working as a server, but many people would know me as a peer support specialist. I had 4 years of continuous sobriety, but I recently had a slip, so now I'm going on 4 months. What brought me to recovery was handcuffs.
That's understandable. I'm glad you made it back.
Me too.
Praise God.
My name's Iesha Elam. I have been in recovery for almost 4 years. And yeah, I guess that definitely desperation had a hand in my motivation to get into recovery. I also can relate to the handcuffs. Luckily for me, my story was a little bit different because I had to go to a hospital first, and so I went directly from a hospital into a treatment facility. I mean, kind of like what Beckie said, there are a lot of things that motivate me to stay clean now. I feel like even while I was still in my madness, I wanted to help people, and I knew I couldn't do it in the state that I was in, so I had to, help myself before I could help other people, and so I, went to treatment and haven't looked back.
Thank you, Aisha.
Man, thank you all. I'm Christopher Campbell. Right now, I'm the director of the Boys and Girls Club for the Hazard Perry location. I've been in recovery for going on 3 years, and I got into recovery honestly because Jesus, man. When I was at Crown, I was surrounded by love. I was surrounded by church, and I made the choice to just start going to church all the time. And I got underneath the pastor there, and I found hope in Jesus. So, I let him guide me now.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I'm Austin. I've been in recovery since October 22nd of 2022, and currently I work at 2 treatment centers, real small treatment centers in, I guess you could say, Middle Kentucky. And the thing that got me into recovery in the first place was just, everything else I had tried, moving, to different places, changing my people, places, and things never really worked. I never wanted to take accountability, and I thought I was smarter than this disease. And I just had to get into desperation, right? I had to go through a few consequences and go through some self-inflicted trauma to realize that that's not what I wanted to do. And at that point, I was just ready. I was ready to do something different. I didn't have anything else on the table. I was 24 and I didn't have anything going for me. I had lost. I burned bridges with my family and my friends, and I had given away multiple things multiple times in this short time on Earth. So I was ready to keep a few things, ready to learn how to love myself, and ready to learn how to love others and be of service. So that's what recovery did for me. On the topic of recovery, I want to know what things work for you guys. What are the things that work to help maintain your recovery on a daily basis? Uh, what's helped so far? What do you maintain?
I can answer that. And I love telling people this. Every time I go to speak in front, I get the opportunity to speak in front of people. I try to tell them this, man. One of my biggest superpowers that I've developed is the ability to walk away or say no. I think that one of my character defects is I'm a people pleaser, so I try to do the most all the time. A brother in recovery once told me, man, you can't do everything, and I got this heart that I want to help people. And in addiction, that looks like giving you my last dollar, even though I don't have anywhere to go, or whatever that may look like, But the ability to say no and learn how to take care of myself, so that I can be the best version of myself, so that I can take care of other people. Developing that skill has helped me out tremendously.
So people pleasing. So does that still pop up today at any time? Do you ever feel it comes creeping back in?
Definitely, I gotta keep it at bay every single day.
Right.
I like I said, I have a heart to want to help people. So I find myself, exhausting myself, pouring from an empty cup, if you will. And I still got to watch it today. It's like I said, it's a character defect. I'm still working on it today.
Right.
I like what he said there about pouring from an empty cup, because that is one of the biggest things that really got me back into the position I was in. When I was a peer support specialist, I was given everything. I got everything you ever wanted back. I got your kid back. I got my house. Was in school full time. I am in school full time. I felt fulfilled, but then I realized I had nothing, I had nothing but just give, 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 because I never put anything back in me. So what I've learned recently is that I need to take time for myself. It's okay to be selfish at times, saying no to helping people, because helping people almost put me in my grave. But now I see that there's a healthy balance in everything. And that's another reason why I stay sober. So I give duality into everything. Like, I know I'm a Christian. Well, I'm spiritual with Christ consciousness, and I spend time with the Lord. I talk to him all the time. I feel so spiritual, more spiritual than I ever have in my life now. And that's because I take time for myself and get to know me, what my recovery looks like outside of things that are mainstream, like AA, NA. What am I like when I'm at home? Am I happy?
Right. It's hard to find that balance when you like, especially when you didn't know how to have that balance in active addiction or in your substance abuse. So getting into recovery and learning about these things that we get, almost indoctrinated to understand, especially the being of service part. Um, where does the line get drawn when I need to take a step back and fill my cup back up, and how do I do so? Right. And that's all individualistic.
Speaking on that, I've got two ways on that one. So I always felt like in active addiction that I was, I guess, like in active addiction, I thought I was a good person, right? So I thought that I was the kind of friend, right, that would help anybody, and I would give you the shirt off my back, and those things were true about me even then. Um, but also, like I had a substance use disorder is a disease. So I had a disease, and I don't think I necessarily uh, thought about it in the right. I guess, perspective or light. So, yeah, I let my friends crash on my couch, and I would give you the shirt off my back, but also like I was creating a lot of harm there as well. So, in my recovery, the thing that keeps me in recovery more than anything, and the thing that I would tell any client that, I came across was the one secret, like magic golden key for recovery for me was always service to other people, and getting out of myself. I'm like, if your sponsor's not picking up the phone, um, your mom's not picking up the phone, your friends aren't, and like the urge is there with you. Like the one thing you can do instantly, like, and snap your fingers and feel better, and distract yourself from that is to help somebody else. Uh, and I think that is a very important and very crucial part of a person's recovery is, just getting outside of yourself. But I also agree that it's really hard to pour from an empty cup. And I think people with a substance use disorder, one of those things, one part of that disease, right, is this like relentless need to constantly be like seeking validation and things like that, and that people pleasing and things like that. And they talk about turning your character defects into character assets, but also there is a deep, deep chasm there on the self care part that I know that I'm not good at, that I'm not really partaking in, and so I tend to drive myself toward burnout and then burnout, and then build that back up again. It's like a pattern.
There's two things I like to say about what you just said, Becky.
Yeah.
One, I liked what you said about like not seeing your addiction in a different light, because I was listening to this podcast once, or not a podcast. It was this lady doing a seminar, and she was like, we operate out of our midbrain when we're high. Like that's the part of the brain that's like, oh, I need water. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that
Oh,
to
yeah.
survive. Like
Yeah.
shelter, warmth. Okay. And then so she said, so you take a regular person and you put them in the desert, right? And they've been walking for days and days and days, and they're dying of thirst. If you pop up randomly, hey, I have this bottle of water here. If you drink it, I'm going to take your kids, your house, your car. You're going to be on the street begging for more water. Do you want to take it? The person in the desert wanting water is going to take it no matter what, because they need to survive. Your body's going in that mode. And that's how we are with drugs.
Friend, yes.
And that is just so, it put me in such a better position in my life to know that I take a lot of responsibility on myself for the things I've done, but also I was operating in a space in my brain that thought I needed it. It's crazy.
It's exactly that, though. It's like if you're in the desert, you need water, right? Like that's such a perfect example of that, though, because people don't realize that for you in that moment, you don't have a choice. And I think for me, that turning point when I decided to agree to go to treatment, when I decided that day, like finally decided, um, it was because I think that it was my mom that came to my rescue that time. And I think for the first time, she saw me as a person who was ill and not just a bad person or a bad mom. She saw for herself, I think that, that it was something that I didn't really have any control over. And that really gave me freedom to seek wellness, because before I just thought I was just bad.
I was speaking with somebody just today about how, drugs are just a symptom of our disease. Um, and just like, what everyone else has been saying, when I got into recovery, I realized that there were a lot of other things that I had to, I thought when I stopped using drugs that my life was going to immediately be better. That was my problem. If I could put everything down, then I could live life like a normal person. And I quickly realized, that all of the things that brought me to the place where I was using were still there. All the fear and insecurity, and lack of coping skills, not knowing how to live life on life's terms. And so coming into recovery, that was something that I had to learn. And for me, the thing that really keeps me is God. Like without Jesus, I'm, right back into it. Like, I go to Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered recovery. It's a 12-step program, but it's for anyone. It's not just, which I think is fantastic, because I think everyone needs a good 12 steps in their life, not just people who use drugs or alcohol. And so that's it's a program, where other people can come in, for codependency or anger issues or control issues, or any of these things, which was what I really needed, because I didn't, I got to a place where I did quit using, but I still had all of these things that I needed to work with, and I needed God to help me, turn those defects into assets. And so I still go, I now I give lessons, and give my testimony anytime that I can, to continue to, to do that, to give back. But it is something that also fills me up. I can tell a difference in my spirit whenever I'm not going, um and doing the things that I know that I need to be doing on a daily basis.
Right. And I think the best part about being in a group like this is that everybody has, this recovery thing is not cookie cutter, and there's multiple pathways to it. And once we can figure out what thing works for us, that's what brings us the peace, and that's what brings us the awareness of ourselves and the balance in our lives. Because for me personally, like, I did not have a need or a want at the time to get sober. Up until the end there, I didn't see a desire to. I wasn't miserable. I didn't think so. I didn't love myself, and that was okay. I didn't have much hope, but that was okay because I had this thing, right? I wasn't very good to people. I did not know how to live by these spiritual principles that we talk about in these 12-step programs. If I took a look at every principle in the 12 steps, I was not living in any one of those. And I would tell you I was a good person, right? I would tell you I was okay, and I would tell you that you know, my problems didn't stink as much as they actually did. And I needed that structure, right? I needed that structure, and I need enough pain first and foremost. But the things that worked was just the love and support of individuals who had dealt with some of the same things that I did. And once I found those people that I enjoyed, I clicked with, that they wanted the same thing, and I started, working the structured way to spiritual enlightenment, or the spiritual fitness that I was looking for in my life within the solution of substance abuse. That's what started helping. And even today, which I'm still in early recovery, but even today, even though I feel like I don't need to go to a meeting, or I don't need to go enjoy the fellowship, if I'm feeling mad or angry, or I'm just feeling tired and I don't want to drive an hour to my home group, it's the thing that worked for as long as it did, as long as it is going. It's working now. So why quit now, even though I feel like I don't need it? It's like working out, right? If I don't use it, I lose it. And same with the thing that's working in my life. And for that's the personal relationship I've gained with the God of my understanding. It's a little bit different than some, but that's okay. It's my personal relationship. And also working through these steps, how I did, it's a little bit different than how some people did, but it's helped me find peace and love for myself, and helped me learn how to love other people, and not judge them, and work on my character defects or my character flaws, because I definitely had many that I didn't want to address at any point in my life until it started becoming a problem.
Yeah, I feel that. But like surprisingly with that, a lot of people don't like go through a structured route, and that's okay too, because once upon a time, and I'm not saying that you said that, but I'm like, a lot of people will go around the world saying, "Oh, you have to do AA to do this. Oh, you need to follow Jesus. Oh, you need to do this," and then people die because they don't fit into that box. And I feel like I'm one that really doesn't fit into that box at times, like, because I've had some really deep stuff happen to me, right? And I'm the type of girl that it'll be 2 years in and we're still friends. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. You don't really know me like that. My best friend in the world, she took me forever just to open up to her. And now I just like, those are just a couple people in the world that truly know me and what's all happened to me. And I'm not going to find a sponsor in like, who knows, like 6 months just to tell them all the stuff I went through. And it took me a while to get to the God of my understanding because the Bible was used against me a lot when I was a kid. So I know I was taught for a long time. So if the God in this book reflects what these people do, then I don't want nothing to do with that God. You know, when I first went, I was like, this is a Jesus cult, bro. Like, get me out of here ASAP. I'm in a cult, you know? But it took one of my family members, one of my family members straight up told me, maybe you need a cult. You know what I mean? Maybe you need a cult to get your stuff right. And I was like, you know what? Let me try it out. And the whole time I went through, I still didn't have a firm foundation on my like spirituality because I was like, these people don't feel the way I feel. These people don't like, how could God be real if he did let that happen to me for a long time? But then I found my God in things in the Bible and outside of the Bible, you know, like in all kinds of different aspects. But I know that my God loves me. You know, my recovery looks different. It's not going to fit into a square box. I'm going to take some out of each box and then I'm going to make it work, you know, and that's okay for some people. And I want people to know that.
Right, most definitely. And I think that hopefully in the hopes that everybody kind of does that, right? Even if they have to go through that structure first and then they figure out that it doesn't work for them, hopefully, we're all trying to find peace. We're all trying to learn to love ourselves and let go of our past and learn to love other people and learn to have some independence and whatever works, right? Um, if I'm trying to stay abstinent, I'm going to do whatever works. And I think it shouldn't be put in a box. Right. And it's nobody else to judge how this recovery thing works for them either. Because it's important that whatever we were seeking, if we found it, that's the important part.
I
Agree.
completely agree with that. Absolutely. You know, with going on 7 years in recovery, I can definitively say that my perspective on recovery, right, has changed drastically over those 7 years. So, yes, at first I needed structure really bad, in a way that, in a really basic way, like get up, make your bed, take a shower. Like I needed that structure. And I think even total abstinence for a while is also like, not everybody can sustain total abstinence.
I agree.
Not everybody can do total abstinence right off the rip, you know. And so that's why I think that, medications are important. Really good therapists and clinicians are important.
Peer support.
In fact, it was some of peer support. Oh my God, peer support is vitally important. Because I won't listen to somebody that hasn't been where I've been
No.
and hasn't done what I've done. Like, I won't take you seriously. I will not, like, I'll put you over here in the not quite as important pile, right? Because I just feel like if you haven't been there, then you can't really speak to it.
At first, but then like I have to agree that like a lot of the people, like I'll shout out one of my best friends in the world, Jennifer Campbell. She's done, but like not like us, and so hearing her perspective and the other side of it really helped me too. Some of the people there that's never been through it helped me just as much as the people that's been through it.
That's true. That's really true. Especially I've had clinicians that were just excellent. But then as I've grown, my perspectives have changed. I don't, like I said, I'm not against MOUD or MAC medications. I'm not against people who decide to be California sober, because to me, recovery is literally any improvement you make. So, if I am like no longer drinking a fifth of Woodford Reserve every day, right? But and a little THC gummy won't kill me. Like that's improvement, right? Like, and I'm keeping it on me, whether that's true for anybody. Like I'm going to keep it on me. Like I just feel like I have no business telling somebody else what recovery should look like for them. As long as there's improvement, as long as there's a better life, and access to resources and those sort of things. Like, I feel like as long as somebody is making progress, they're in recovery.
Man, it's a journey. What does your journey look like? I, I completely, I believe that if you don't, because we got to change our people, places, and things, right? And if you don't find new people, new places, new things, then you're gonna go back to the old. We all crave connection. They always taught us the opposite of addiction is connection, right? So we got to go out and find people that are like minded like us. Like Iesha said, she was in CR. I love CR. I think that it's a perfect mix of people because you don't have to be a Jesus freak, but you're allowed to be a Jesus freak. And I just think that if you when you're on your journey trying to find out this new life that we're embarking, you're looking for, you have to find somebody to connect with, man, because you can't do this thing alone. For me, loneliness was one of my biggest, reasons I was going to use. I was going to go out and find something to do, with a bag in my pocket, and now that I have a community that I can go be a part of my church, my job, or whatever community works for you, you can rely on those people, So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
At the recovery center that I went to, they taught us the same thing about the opposite of addiction is connection, and that was really eye opening for me. I mean, it was something that I would have never come to that conclusion on my own. I needed someone to point that out for me, and I think that that's one of the best things about being in recovery is finding a community of people that are also trying to make their lives better a little bit every day. I mean, I say all the time, people in recovery are the best people that I've ever met, because we're taking accountability for things that we've done and we're actively trying to make ourselves better. And so that's one of the things I love about CR as well is because when I first came to CR, I felt like I was not not almost not good enough. I wasn't like as spiritual or as whatever as everybody else was, and I thought that they were going to judge me, but simultaneously I was judging other people who were not who had not gone through or had substance use disorder. So I'm in social work now. I'm about to graduate with my master's in social work from UK. And when I first started at MSU for my bachelor's, I had to really look at my biases towards people that hadn't been through the same things that I had because I didn't take that as seriously. I wasn't um, taking their trauma, as serious as I would somebody else who had been homeless or assaulted or any of these things. And once I started paying attention, I realized that bad things are bad things. And when people go through bad things, like they need other people, to get them through that. And it's not on me to say like my trauma's bigger than yours. Um, and at the same time, I realized that I had people that were also not judging me for the things that I had done. It was it was where I found connection, which was, as it turns out, one of the things I needed.
Aisha, I think that's beautiful.
We're going to cut in here for just a second to hear from some folks who make community radio possible. But stay tuned for more Mountain Talk after the break. Welcome back to Mountain Talk. For our show today, we're hearing the first episode in a new podcast series from WMMT and the Free II Project, a discussion between Appalachian people about addiction, treatment, and recovery. This conversation was moderated by Free II Intern Austin Callahan, and where we'll pick things up, our own Beckie Rose-Bowman was sharing her thoughts about the value of finding community in recovery. Just as a quick content warning, there are sensitive topics brought up in this half of the show, including abuse. Here's Beckie Rose-Bowman.
And I want to kind of bounce off of that. That opposite of addiction is connection. I also struggled with that loneliness and that not feeling connected and feeling uh, different, or just kind of like I didn't belong. And I can tell you guys that I was an alcoholic long before I ever took my first drink. I was an alcoholic as a kid. Um, and I say that not because I was a drinking alcoholic, but I exhibited those, traits, being obsessive and feeling, like I was just not a part of or different, and like I didn't belong, and those feelings. But that's also related to some trauma, right? And my trauma, you said something there, and that like made my brain go off. I didn't feel like my trauma counted. Like I had some childhood trauma, and it was I'm trying to be respectful about this because I've done a lot of work on it. So it was a situation where I was molested by a family member, and that family member was also a child. And that trauma haunted me all my life. But, I felt like when I would look back to that time, that my parents did what they thought was best, which was basically separated us and so forth. But what happened was that I, as a child, blamed myself for the situation. And nobody ever thought to ask me if I blamed myself. And then nobody ever, when I started to kind of disconnect from my cousin group and like the kids in the family, when I started to kind of disconnect from that and go a different way, I don't think anybody ever thought to ask, was that because I felt excluded because I was the bad guy? I felt like I was the bad guy. I was a little kid, and I felt like somehow it was me that caused the harm, and I didn't belong in the cousin group anymore. And you know, I'm still working on that today. We had a recent family gathering that I really had to come home and process afterward. A lot of the feelings and the thoughts that I had. Thank God, today I can process through some of that without picking up a drink, right? Um, but there's always, in my experience, an underlying trauma, right? So, and that trauma, from my childhood, like I've addressed with therapists and forgiven and made amends, where I could, because, the amends that I have to make on that is not necessarily what happened when I was a kid, but that I'm 46 years old and I'm only now trying to unpack it. So in that time frame, keeping myself there mentally has also harmed my children, or my family, because I've separated myself from my family. And that's not neither good or bad. It's not really pointing fingers or blaming anybody. But I think that because, I had a really great childhood, aside from this event, that I didn't feel also like I belonged in a recovery community. And I didn't feel like I wasn't a good enough drug addict. That's how I felt. I always felt like I wasn't a good enough or bad enough, and I don't even know how to make that argument, drug addict.
I totally understand exactly what you're saying because first of all, the exact same thing happened to me whenever I was a kid, and I was so young that I wasn't even sure if it was real or had I dreamed it or all the things. Um, but it's also something that I've had to work on and really work through. But I remember, so it took me a long time to get to this 4 years, and so I, when I first started coming around, I was like 19 or 20, and I'm 34 now, if that tells you anything. So I've been at this for a long time, really trying. But when I first started coming around the rooms of like NA and AA, I would hear people talk about all of these things that they had done, and marriages that they had lost, and friendships they had ruined, and bridges they had burned, and all of these things, and I hadn't done those things yet. And I didn't I didn't think that I belonged. I was like, well, obviously I don't have a problem. That's not me. Obviously I'm not supposed to be here because I didn't do those things. Um and it took me going back out a couple times to realize that, the unmanageability looks different on different people, and sadly enough, I did eventually get to the point where I had burned all the bridges and lost all the things and the kids, and but I feel like there's a lot of people that wouldn't have to get that far if they could come into a place where they knew, like, it doesn't matter um how many consequences you face. What matters is the disease that you have and what you want to do about that.
I can definitely relate to that. And the reason why I can relate to that, engaging myself with others in these rooms or just in recovery in general. I was 21 when a family member asked me to try to get sober the first time. I had reached my first psych ward from a drug-induced psychosis episode, right? So I fly to Kentucky from Washington, and I come to my first meeting. And I come to my first meeting, not really, I wouldn't say completely voluntarily, right? I mean, I didn't have a car at the time. I didn't have a license. I had just moved to a new state, and this family member of mine wanted me to go to a meeting. So I said, okay. And once I went to this meeting, right, hearing all these things, hearing all of these, just the people sharing what they're sharing about, and I would look around the room and gauge myself, right? And I always have a problem with that. I always have a problem with my terminal uniqueness, and that's exactly what it is, right? I am not like these
Come
people.
on.
I have not done these things. I am a better person. So that must mean I'm not an addict or an alcoholic. And that must mean I don't have this disease. And that must mean I just like using drugs and other substances. Right. So wrapping my head around that, I had to go through a few consequences, right? Consequences that helped me find that healthy fear in these things, right? Because as a person with this disease, right, this alcoholism or this addiction, these normal fears that other people have, I do not, right? I am not worried about the consequences because I am over them, right? And I am better than dealing with these consequences because I'm too smart to go through these consequences. Once I hit these consequences, that's when I started to realize, right? If anything in this book or if anything that these people are saying to me have any relation to me, I must have the same problem, right? No matter if it was, if I can take anybody's story and get anything out of it, I must have the disease too. If I can read this big book or this Narcotics Anonymous book or this Celebrate Recovery book and I can find relation in it, then man, there must be something I have to work on.
I love that, man. Because I completely agree. I think that one of the things that put me into a deeper addiction was thinking that I was better than everybody else. Um, I don't want to trigger anybody, but just the levels of the steps that you go through when you're going deeper into addiction. I was an IV user, and it took me steps to get there, man. And those steps came from me thinking that I was better than the people in the rooms. Because when I first got into the rooms, it was a hard suggestion from my mom. We talking about consequences. Just to share my consequences for me look like losing my friends, to death, jail, or petty arguments. Beefing with my mom, who was one of my best friends in life. She's my angel, and I'm beefing with her. Um, Building and destroying these awesome lives with friends or jobs, or just building up these platforms in my life just to watch them burn down to my own doing. And that's what my consequences look like. And I think that if I was willing to listen in the beginning, which nobody really is because we're not ready, just to hopefully hope free some people. Listen when you first get in recovery, man, because like he said, like if I have anything in common with this book, these people, this thing, that that I might have, I probably got this disease, man. I actually love that you said that.
So my question is for you guys. Do you feel that trauma or negative life experiences led up to your substance abuse? Or do you feel it is unrelated? Do you feel you just touched the forbidden fruit too many times and made it a habit?
Oh, Lord, honey. So my trauma definitely was directly a part of my addiction, and part of the reason, and I'll tell this story hopefully quickly. Uh, So on my 18th birthday, when I said earlier that I was an alcoholic long before I ever took my first drink, on my 18th birthday, I got up, I got in the bed with my mom, and I looked her in the eye and I said, Mom, I'm getting married today on my 18th birthday, because I was an alcoholic. And that meant I was also rebellious and resentful. And I really thought that I was like escaping this like religious, controlling family. And I was going to go out and just be this free spirit with my new husband. And what I really did was put myself in a much worse situation. Um, I married this person, and he was already deep in active addiction, and I was completely, unaware and clueless. Other than that event that I talked about previously, like I had a pretty close to fairy tale childhood, right? I had everything I needed, most of what I wanted, and I was very naive. So I didn't think that things like heroin and cocaine were real in Kentucky. I thought that was just like for New York or Chicago or something that you see on the news, and not, here, not on the holler. And so I was in for a very rude awakening. And then, so I dabbled around with some marijuana, or I would drink some screwdrivers occasionally. But I married into the kind of family that was just very Appalachian, deep in the forest, and things were just a certain way. And I realized really fast that I could be barefoot and pregnant, or I could, learn to fight chickens and trade horses like my husband did. And so it was kind of a, if you can't beat them, join them situation. And so all of that led up to getting ready to go to a chicken fight. And my husband and his brother were doing coke on a saw table, and I had never even seen it before, but they had it in a baggie, and I was like, oh, I feel like that might be cocaine. Oh my goodness. Like, I'm 18. Like, what have I gotten myself into? And his brother's wife walked up on the hill where we were, and she was angry, and she said, she told her husband, she was like, I told you if I ever caught you doing that again, I was going to take these kids, and I'm going to take the car, and I'm going to take the house, and I'm going to divorce you, and all the things. And my husband interrupted her and said, no, no, don't worry about that. Like, that's not what you think it is. Watch here, Becky will do it. And I had this like moment, and I'll never forget this. My hands are sweating just telling it. Where I thought to myself, because I'm Dare generation, 90s Gen X baby over here. And the Dare officer always said that if you did a line of coke, like one line of coke could kill you. So I have that running in one side of my brain, but also having the other side of my brain, I was in this very violent relationship. So the other side of my brain said, but if you don't do this right now, one, he's going to beat your tail, and then his brother is too. And so when we talk about underlying trauma, like I was literally in fear of my life in two different ways. When I bent my head down over that saw table and I did that first line of coke. And the crazy thing is when I stood back up, I couldn't remember what I was so scared of, because I felt like I could just rule the world. And so going from that place of like fear and desperation and this little tiny line of white powder, and everything was cured in that trauma situation, like, I think it's stupid now, but I look back and I can see how 18-year-old me would have clung to that and been like, oh, okay, this is the answer. Like, this is how I make my marriage work. And this is how I fit into this family that I left a family I felt like I didn't fit in, just to come into another family that I didn't feel like I fit into. And so that was just another way for me to belong, in that thought process of, if you can't beat them, join them. But that one line of coke, literally, that was the start of 2 decades of just me, out there running and raging. And I can't get that time back.
Well, for me, I come from a family with alcoholics and drug addicts. It's like a dark cloud that follows my family. I just followed suit, you know? I was in a small town, nothing to do, bored out of my mind. There's only a Walmart, you know? And then my people around me are doing drugs and I see them having fun and then it's like offered to me. And just like Beck said, it was like, wow, I finally fit in. Oh my God, my thoughts aren't beating me up. I can disassociate from my trauma for a minute. My life isn't so bad. I'm high, you know? Like, and then, like, oh man, everything was great. I can just ignore what's going on. I can just, you know, go to work happier and be this person, but then I just didn't, you know? I seen the dark side of why I got taken away from my mom and like how my kids got taken away from me. It was like I mirrored my family's life. I used to look at myself and I'd say I would never be like her, you know? And there's looking, I'll never be like my mom, you know? Then I'm like, then one day I was looking in the mirror, messed up out of my brain. And I was like, I'm just like my mom. I'm just like my mom. And I walked out of the bathroom, like telling my ex, oh my God, I'm just like my mom. And he's like, yeah, you didn't know that? I'm like, dude, are you joking me right now? He's sitting in this trap house with me. Don't even start, you know? But from that moment, it was like something broke, like this mirror in my life where it's like I was throwing this pity party. Oh, Sam, oh, she went through so much and da 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 da. And finally, I just got tired of feeling sorry for myself, dude. I was throwing my own pity party because everybody let me. Of course, I went through all kinds of bad stuff. Life isn't all easy. It's never going to be all easy. God puts things in your life like that to happen because you're supposed to build yourself up to help the next person that goes through things like that. And you know, see the bright side of things and how you can go through such darkness and become this light being in the world, ready to hand matches out to people who are just feeling like dimmed, you know?
You see, my story is a little different. I'm adopted. I was adopted by two great parents. I had a great childhood. We adopted another, my brother, you know, and then I went off to college and discovered that I love weed, and you know, partying and all this other stuff. And you know, I came back home, and everybody that I hung out with was drug dealers. You know, so I kind of got tossed into that culture of always being around drugs, smoking weed, making money, and it developed this false sense of who I was, right? You know, I was listening to rap music, and I had failed all my big dreams, you know, going to college, becoming a lawyer, and I had failed myself. I felt like I had failed my dad because he always wanted me to be this great person, and I couldn't live up to those standards. So I thought I was a failure. So you know, I was like, okay, let me immerse myself in this culture. I think Sam said that earlier, that you know, like a product of my environment. You know, so now I'm around all these things, and lo and behold, one day I go to a friend's house on the corner, and they got pills. They breaking them up, crushing them down, and snorting them. And I'm like, you know, I'm with some of my friends, and my friends even said no, but the addict in me wanted to feel how they felt because I seen what they did, and then I saw like their eyes, and I saw them go, ooh, you know, I seen that false feeling of relief, and you know, I desired that, right? And so now here I am snorting this line, and you know, now I'm doing pills. You know, a little bit later in my journey, I run into cocaine, and now I'm doing cocaine. You know, and it goes further and further into meth, and then the how you doing it, and it was just like I was just chasing something. You know, we all said we're chasing that dragon, but like truly, I remember it, and you know, I gotta be careful when I watch movies and stuff because I see that look on people's face of relief, and like my brother was saying, you know, I didn't have great coping skills. I'm still working on them today, but if I have this huge life failure, like I was walking around feeling like a failure all the time, you know, and that caused me to want to be suicidal and you know try to kill myself multiple times, and you know, I'm chasing this relief from my failure. You know what I mean? Because I was never around alcohol. My mom and dad didn't drink growing up. You know, nobody we associated with. I was all about sports. You know, so everybody that I knew was either going to church, and my neighbor was a preacher, so I was never around that stuff. And then I came home, but my poor choice, well, not poor choice, because I love my boys and we've all grown, but at the time it was a poor choice of friends, and I just wanted to fit in. I felt like my history, I played high school sports. Speaking for myself, I was pretty good. So I was popular in high school. So I always craved that attention. That the word that want to come to my mind is that it was a worship kind of thing. I wanted people to know who I wanted to be famous. And that craving for acceptance is what detoured me, because I found the wrong group of people and wanted to be, and they didn't accept because I was a college boy, because they never had that opportunity. They didn't accept that I had both my parents, because they didn't have that. So like I found myself chasing acceptance, um, you know, and that's another character defect that I have.
I feel like I kind of got like a mix of all of the things that we've been talking about. Like my um my dad was an alcoholic, and my mom was really codependent. And I remember growing up thinking like I didn't want to be like my mom, because my dad treated her horribly, and she put up with it, and she uh, with affairs and abuse, emotional abuse and physical abuse and all these things that she allowed to happen. And I felt like, and now I can see that she was doing, she didn't have the skills that I felt like she should have had, growing up. But it was a very toxic environment, and so I did my best to stay away from that. Like when I give my testimony, I talk about how it was kind of like I made these other worlds that I could go to, and things would be different, and I wouldn't have to deal with the stress from home and arguing. And I mean, it was constant arguing. Like we did not speak in my house. Like we didn't talk to each other. We screamed at each other, or it was silence. And so I'd gone through all these things, and I remember the first time that I remember um, feeling some type of way about a substance. I was in like ninth or 10th grade, and I had actually had my tonsils removed, and they gave me liquid Lortab. And I remember I'd taken a dose. I was taking it like I was supposed to, but for whatever reason, my mom gave it to me to like manage, which I don't know why she did that. I was so young. Um, but I had taken my dose like I was supposed to, and then I'd gotten to an argument with my parents, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, and my throat hurt extra bad. So I thought I will take another dose, right? Because my throat was really, really sore. And I remember like the feeling that I got and thinking, okay, like this is something different. And that's probably the point in my life in which things kind of changed for me and substances. It was no longer because by that point I had smoked weed and drank a couple times, but at that point it was like, oh, this makes me feel a different way. I didn't really get bad because I didn't ever pay for anything. I just kind of did whatever was around. If somebody was smoking weed, I'd smoke weed. If they were drinking, that's what I would do. But then whenever I got older, I got with a guy who was he was he was in the middle of an active addiction that I didn't understand. And because I was still really naive about it. I was still in that mindset, like, I'm just having fun, I'm young, and this and that. And but I remember at the time I worked, and so I would get a pill. We get him and me a pill like every day, and I didn't think anything about it until one day when I couldn't and I didn't feel well. And I remember saying, like, man, I think I'm coming down with something. Like, I just feel so run down. And that guy being like, you're dope sick. And I remember being like, no, not me. That's impossible. Um, and that's kind of when I knew that it was not something that, something that I had a handle on. I thought, oh, maybe I should cut back a little bit. Um, but I was still young, and it took me a lot of like I said earlier, a lot more consequences and a lot more things to really get to a place where I was like, I can't do this. I think maybe I'll turn the reins over to God and see how it goes.
Do you feel you have lost an aspect of yourself in your substance use that you're either trying to get back, or you found a new aspect of yourself that you're falling into?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I feel like is in life, we'll never be the same person, like, so there's parts of myself that needed to die off, and there's parts of myself that needed to grow. So in my transition of being on this earth to be a higher being, God is going to put these things in my life to make the old fruit fall off so I can bear new fruit that's like, better. Nothing that happens in God's work by mistake. If I was supposed to lose it, then I lost it. And if I'm supposed to have it, I'll get it back. And it'll be, back tenfold.
Honestly, I say let it all shed. The things that I thought I wanted to hold on to, I didn't need it, and it just took me time to realize that. The things that I continue to try to grow and try to master these blessings from God that I have. Um, those are the things that I need. The more I feel like in keeping it on myself, the more I connect with the spirit, the more I can find these other things that I need, and the more I don't crave, want, or desire those old things that kept me feeling safe.
I feel like, so I think that I'm a new creation. The Bible tells us that we are new creations in Christ Jesus, and that's how I feel. I feel like this person that I am today is someone that I've never been before, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the refining that happened when I was in the madness. There were parts of me that I lost, and parts like pride, ego, things that I needed to shed in order to get to where I am today. I'm grateful that for the progress that I've made, the relationships that have been restored in my life, and for opportunities like this, to shed light on things like substance use disorder, and the fact that we are people with a disease, but we are not the things that we did. We are much much more than that, and we're still worthy. We're still able to turn things around and do good.
You've been listening to a roundtable discussion between Appalachian people about addiction, treatment, and recovery. The voices you heard were that of Samantha Colleen, Chris Campbell, Beckie Rose-Bowman, Iesha Elam, and Austin Callahan. This was the first episode in a new podcast series from WMMT and the Free II Project, which is funded by the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky. Stay tuned this fall and winter for more episodes from this series, which will tackle different aspects of addiction and recovery here in the mountains. Free II intern Austin Callahan hosted today's discussion and edited it for the radio. Our thanks to Austin, Beckie Rose-Bowman, and the whole Free II team for their work on today's show. And that's it for Mountain Talk today. Thanks so much for listening. For WMMT, I'm Parker Hobson.